Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our first LinkedIn Live this year. We have a special partner today with us, and we're going to talk about the European Blockchain Sandbox. We have a lot of guests as well. Thank you all for coming and discussing about your projects, what have you done in the past, how the sandbox will look this year. And of course, we wanted to facilitate everyone that is interested in applying for the sandbox to have as much information as possible. So everyone that is following this LinkedIn Live can share their questions in the comments. We'll try to answer them. Otherwise, you will also have the recording and you can look at it anytime you're interested or you have time to learn more. My name is Marina. I am the co-founder of the European Crypto Initiative, which is an advocacy group based in Brussels. And we, of course, are focusing on blockchain projects, working on projects as well, with projects that are working in crypto blockchain and trying to basically share some of the updates from the industry and trying to also, of course, learn more from what's going on in the European Union on this topic. And we are also very curious, of course, with the new year to learn more about what the whole Commission would like to, in a way, promote, do in terms of the innovation when it comes to blockchain as well. Again, thank you for joining, and I will start with a very short introduction about the European Blockchain Sandbox and, of course, of all of the speakers. But then I will give it to basically Miriam and Marjolaine, because they're going to be the ones really presenting this sandbox. And then, of course, some of the great projects that, in a way, are connected to that, represented by Stefano, Klaus, and Elisenda. Thank you, Oregon. So in a way, the Blockchain Sandbox has been active already 3 years. So this is the 3rd year. And there's been a lot of projects that have gone through that. The main focus of the, in a way, Sandbox is to learn more about the projects, but also to help project with guidance, specifically legal one, because we know that in this space, in the blockchain crypto space, there's a lot of open questions we might not have the answers to. And this is why we have great, in a way, specialists that will help those projects. And in a way, there's also this aim to share innovation that is happening in Europe and, in a way, promote this innovative projects, help them promote themselves, but also launch products, and I would say get more clarity as well. So as I said before, I will start with Marjolaine. She is a partner at Bird Bird, specializing in European and international regulatory projects with a focus on innovation in technology and other sectors. Today, she is the chair of the Bird Bird's Global Tech and Comms Group and head of the firm's international section, regulation and consulting practice. She is also the project leader of the European Blockchain Sandbox. Thank you again for joining us. Next one, we have Miriam Lyons. She's a consultant at OXYGY Consulting with a diverse background spanning life science, retail, consumer, and technology industries. Before consulting, Miriam worked as a research chemist in a pharmaceutical drug development. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Marina.
Next one, we have Stefano. He's an advisor, consultant, interim executive, entrepreneur, investor, as well as the founder and CEO of the ReLOG3P with over 30 years in industrial sector, including 25 plus years in global trade. With expertise in lean management and operation, he contributes as an expert to the UN CEFACT and the World Bank, shaping global trade and economic developments initiatives. Thank you for joining us. The next one, we have Klaus. He is the CEO of DigiShares and has a background in business development, entrepreneurship, and blockchain software solutions, including a PhD in Bayesian networks. Klaus has previously held key leadership roles, including COO of Venture Fusion and Aglerns Solutions. Sorry, maybe you'll fix my pronunciation later. And CEO of DSDE, specializing in AI-based diagnostics. Wow, very impressive. Thank you for joining us. Elisenda is the last of our speakers. She's the general counsel of Brickken, specializing in bridging legal frameworks with Web3 technology to drive blockchain adoption. She's also an educator and speaker on the Web3 legal topics, contributing to institutions like EBIS, Techno School, and Nuclear Digital School. Again, thank you all. I will, for the first question, or for the first topic, really give it to Miriam in Madeleine to start with a presentation of what the Blockchain Sandbox is, and we're all going to be enlightened about what you're going to say.
Great, thank you, Marina. And we have a few slides to share for this as well. Great, thank you. So I think we can actually go to the next one and give a little bit of an introduction to the purpose behind the European Blockchain Sandbox. So the European Blockchain Sandbox is an initiative that was originally started by the European Commission almost 3 years ago now. And the aim of the project is to establish a framework right across Europe for regulatory dialogues so that there is a safe and confidential space for blockchain use cases and innovators across the EU, EEA, to engage in these conversations with national and EU level regulators and authorities to help develop best practices for blockchain regulation right across Europe. So the aim really is to make sure that blockchain innovators, use cases have the opportunity to have these one-on-one confidential conversations with regulators and authorities to raise any questions, concerns they might have about the regulatory landscape and highlight any potential issues or challenges that they might be facing in the area. And from the perspective of regulators and authorities, it really helps to develop a better understanding of what kinds of regulatory questions are arising right across different sectors and different regions. So ultimately, this means that the sandbox can help to develop regulatory best practices in blockchain across different sectors, across different regions. And the European Commission put out an open call for tenders 3 years ago. And with this, our consortium put forward an application. So this consortium is a combination of Bird and Bird, who are the project leaders, OXYGY Consulting, of which I am a part, and we are the consulting arm of Bird and Bird. Along with us, we also have blockchain experts from Warren Brandeis. We have a panel of independent academic experts who validate our selection process. And we also have SpinDocs who manage our website, just to give a little bit of an introduction to who the different players in the Sandbox team are. So if we look to the next slide then, looking at what does the sandbox actually mean to the use cases involved? What kind of benefits are there for the use cases? And of course, our lovely second cohort here can maybe attest to some of these. But the sandbox opens up opportunities for free specialist legal and regulatory advice from Bird and Bird, who are leading legal and regulatory experts in the space. It also allows use cases to engage in constructive dialogues with regulators and authorities from national and EU levels, and have their input heard for the development of regulatory best practices. And in addition, because this is a European Commission-led project, this provides opportunities to really extend your network and your reputation through Europe, because this is, as I said, a pan-European project, and have the opportunity to share and highlight your needs and your questions regarding the regulatory landscape when it comes to blockchain. So moving on to the next slide, I'll hand over to Marjolein to give a little bit more of an introduction to what we've seen before and what we're seeing now in our third applications phase.
So much, and thank you so much, Marina, for having us today. I hope the audio and the video is okay because I'm on my mobile. It's okay. Can you hear me?
I think your sound is coming and going a little bit, Marjolein. You might need to come a little bit closer to the microphone.
The mobile in my now is it? Oh,
It sounds better. Maybe let's try again. Yeah.
well, we'll get started. So thank you so much for having us, also to Marina and the EUCI. It's great to be able to explain about the European Blockchain Sandbox. It's a 3-year project, as Miriam mentioned. We started at the beginning of 2023 with the first cohort. Then we had the second cohort, the 2024 cohort that we are currently will have now.
There are some problems with the mic because we cannot hear you. So maybe if there is a possibility to fix that, let's try again. Yeah, unfortunately, we cannot hear you.
And can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's better.
Okay, I switched off the camera, so
Perfect.
that is well, that is what it is then.
This is much better. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Apologies for that. I was just explaining that we work with 3 cohorts. We have the 2023 cohort, the 2024 cohort, and we are currently going through the application for the 2025 cohort. Each cohort consists of 20 use cases, and these can be use cases from all different sizes and both private sector and public sector. So we have micro enterprises, small enterprises, large enterprises, and also public sector bodies that can apply for the sandbox and participate in the regulatory dialogues. The 2023 cohort of 20 use cases, 20 dialogues is complete. We published the best practices report in June of last year. Of course, it was new for everyone in the market, for the blockchain community. It was new also for the regulators and the authorities, both on national and EU level. It was new, but it was actually a fantastic success. We had 20 use cases. We had 20 great dialogues with cross-border regulatory discussions with regulators on national level and on European level. In total, more than 50 national and EU regulators participated in that first cohort, and the results are in the best practices report. The second cohort dialogues are currently ongoing. Again, 20 very impressive use cases, so we are very, very happy about that. Also use cases coming from all different EU regions, which is also great. Also, the regulators and the authorities are coming from all EU regions. We see a significant increase in interest from regulators, both on a national level and on an EU level. We have at this moment far more than 70 regulators who participate in the dialogues. Also, on average, we have more regulators who participate in the dialogues, and actually that is, of course, very encouraging for us that that the project really brings something to the community, both the innovators on the one hand, but also the regulators on the other hand, and that the two groups really think that it's very valuable to go into these dialogues together. Time is moving fast, of course, also in the blockchain space. So we see an increased emphasis on combination of technologies, blockchain, DLT in combination with AI or IoT. We also see new regulatory areas coming into play, like the Data Regulation, Data Act, Digital Services Act are important examples. The AI Act is becoming more and more relevant, and also the eIDAS regulation is of increased importance for this second cohort. And currently we are going through the third cohort application round, and the application term closes at the end of this month. Perhaps we can go to the next slide. So who can apply? That is companies, including startups, scale-ups, non-profit organizations and public entities based in the EEA with a validated proof of concept can apply. based in the EEA. That is important, but there is also the possibility to be in a consortium with consortium partners outside the EEA. But then still, one of the eligibility criteria is that the applicant should be based in the EEA, and the use case should also be led from the EEA. But with that said, also parties and participants in the consortium from outside the EEA are welcome. Perhaps we can go to the next slide. And this is the slide which says something about the selection process. So the first important step is the eligibility criteria based in the EEA, also 6 months in existence. Accounting on the 31st of January of this year is an eligibility criterion, and the validated proof of concept. So that is in practice TRL level 5 as a minimum. And the background of that is that we are having dialogues with regulators and authorities about real use cases. They do not need to be on the market already, but in any event, they need to have reached as a minimum TRL level 5, because in our experience also the dialogues become much more fruitful if we really discuss a tangible use case. The selection of the use cases is not done by Bird Bird and also not by OXYGY, because we do not want to give the impression or that any party would be favored. The whole application and selection process is transparent. It's non-discriminatory on the basis of published selection criteria. The selection is done by independent blockchain experts, and the selection is overseen by the independent panel of academic experts. We as Bird Bird and OXYGY, we only see the selected applicants, the group of 20 selected applicants after the selection has been made, and then we still go through the final eligibility phase, but that is when we come into play. Looking at the selection criteria after the eligibility criteria, there are basically 3 important award criteria that are applied. The first award criterion is the maturity of the use case. So a minimum TRL level 5, but then the more mature the use case, the higher the score for that specific award criterion. The second award criterion is the relevance of the regulatory areas and topics for discussion in connection with the use case. So we are typically looking at use cases that are relevant in more than one country, and also in for other innovators in the space and other regulators working in the space. The third award criterion is contribution to the wider EU policy objectives like cybersecurity, the data economy, sustainability regulation, human values, and those are the most important ones. Based on those award criteria, there is a long list being prepared. We work with different lots. So in the cohort of 20 use cases, there are 4 lots of each 5 places. 1 lot for the micro enterprises, 1 lot for the small enterprises, 1 lot for the other enterprises, and 1 lot for the public entities. And the non-profit organizations, which are not public entities, are in one of the enterprises lots. If we do not have enough applications for a specific lot, for instance in the public entities lot, then we will use the remaining places for who comes next on the long list of applicants. It can happen that that there is a need to apply certain tiebreakers. There are 3 tiebreakers. And the first tiebreaker is regulator support. in the application form, there is a link to a regulator support letter. And regulator support means that there is a regulator on national or EU level who is prepared to join the dialogues if the use case would be selected. That tiebreaker comes into play if use cases end with the same or almost the same score, and a choice has to be made. And if there's one of the two with a regulator support letter, then that will be used as a tiebreaker. We also have a geographical uniqueness tiebreaker. If one of the European regions is completely underrepresented, then the geographical uniqueness tiebreaker might be applied to have a use case from the underrepresented region. And we also have a technical novelty tiebreaker, and that is if everything fails and there are still equal scores, then the blockchain experts can apply the technical novelty tiebreaker to actually determine which company is or organization is selected for the cohort. There's a formula that is applied, and that results in the 20 use cases. Perhaps a final word on that. The use cases on the EPSI network can also participate. They will not have to go through the application process. They are in the public entity lot, and in the first cohort we had one EPSI use case, that was the diploma use case. In the second cohort we have again one EPSI use case, that is the business registers use case, and also in the third cohort we will have one EPSI use case. The selection process applies to the use cases, so the innovators, the regulators and authorities, they do not have to apply, and there's no selection process for the participating regulators and authorities. That is something that we work out in practice. Perhaps there are certain questions about that, but we can discuss that later. Perhaps we can go to the next slide. Yeah, there is the QR code and the details about the application process. So applications are open. There's the second cohort here, but that's the third cohort until the 31st of January of this year, so in a few weeks. The application form and all the instructions can be found on the website. And perhaps if there are any questions, well, of course, during this webinar, more than welcome, but also after the webinar, please send us an email or contact us, and we will address those questions before the end of the deadline. The questions that are asked and the answers that are given are also made available on the website in the FAQ section, so that all applicants have the same information. And if you ask any questions, please no later than 5 working days before the end of the application term. That gives us some time to respond. Miriam, I think this is it for the presentation.
This is it for the slides. Yeah, I think we can answer some questions.
I think this is all. Thank you so much for the first part of the presentation. We can see that you've put so much effort into also the selection process. It's very interesting to learn how the whole selection process is developed, and how basically you are really, not you directly, but of course it is, the selection process is done independently. Thank you again. We'll go next to Stefano. Stefano, I wanted to learn more about what is ReLOG3P, what are you building? And also, how was your experience with the sandbox? Why did you have the idea to apply, and how did you basically go through the whole year of being a part of the sandbox?
Thanks, Marina. And first of all, we participate to this European Blockchain Sandbox project together with our partners, as mentioned by Marilyn, Morpheus Network from Canada, because we are partnering after 3 years, focusing on transparency and efficiency along the global trade. Consider that still nowadays the global trade, which anyway moves 90% of what we use every day, for more than 60% is manual based, paper based, PDF based, so extremely fragmented, and this brings a lot of inefficiencies. So that's where we focus since business-wise and since our inception. And when we saw the opportunity on the European Blockchain Sandbox, we immediately click on the case to share our case with the regulators because of the global dimension and impact that our business has. So clearly, by design and by default, we need to work hand in hand with any part of the chain, including, and I would say mainly, the regulators. So this is one key aspect that we have considered when we decided to apply. In fact, how do we work in our business is by means of middleware platform that provide a number of features, among which key are indeed transparency. So we measure end-to-end events along the chain in order to satisfy a number of requirements from top-down regulations and from bottom-up we as users. So this is also related to sustainability. And we finally have a number of ongoing relationship with different EU and United Nations initiatives on the transparency along the chain, not least the digital product passport, just to name a big one. So all in all, when we put all these pieces together, we have considered that the European blockchain was a huge opportunity for us in order to enter in contact and share our experience, our needs with the experience and needs of the regulators, trying to move forward in the tighten the collaboration for the purpose of being more effective in our job and in our basically lending to real, as Marilyn mentioned, to real practical cases. There is a huge need to be fast on that.
Thank you so much. And you mentioned that you had a partner that is outside of the EU. What did they think about this initiative and the European Blockchain Sandbox?
To be honest, Marina, when we look at our business, because as I mentioned, it's a global business, we are not thinking at regional or local level. So for us, it's very natural to look at one unique thing. And clearly, we can say Europe is a key market globally. So whoever does business globally has to consider Europe. By the way, Europe is driving a number of fundamental regulations in the past few years, together with those initiatives at the global level. So for us, has been quite natural to consider since the beginning this European connection because of the global dimension of our business.
That's great. Thank you for the presentation. Maybe we'll have more questions later coming from our audience. I would go to the next project, which is the DigiShares, and ask Klaus to tell us more about DigiShares, and of course, again, the whole experience with being a part of the cohort.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting us here today. We are extremely happy to be part of the sandbox. I represent a Danish company, DigiShares. We are a software company. We provide a platform, white label platform for tokenization of real world assets. We operate globally also. We also have a US subsidiary. We have around 200 clients globally using our platform to tokenize their different assets, which is primarily real estate. And we've been around for 6 years. So a natural extension of our business was to create an exchange, realestate.exchange, which is basically for trading the tokenized real estate interests. And we've been working on that business concept for a couple of years, and also realizing that legally it's a complicated endeavor in the European Union to map out the licensing requirements for such an exchange, especially considering that we want to do it in a DeFi native way. So we want to use AMM technology, automated market maker technology, to make sure that we can sort of democratize the use and provision of liquidity within the exchange, and in that way more easily bootstrap and make a good trading experience for the users. So it's unclear how exactly to license such a concept within the European Union. That was the reason and motivation for us to join the sandbox. I'm not the primary person on our side. We have a legal counsel, a lawyer employed, who is taking part of the discussions with the Bird Bird team. And we've had several meetings at this stage, including one with the regulators present. And I think that 5 regulators chose to participate in our use case, which I think is quite good for us. At this stage, we are still going through the discussions, and the Bird and Bird team is helping us a lot to sharpen our questions and set up a more precise description of the scope of the discussion, and sort of presenting it in a clear way to the regulator so we can get some feedback. And we're still awaiting the final feedback. I think which will come over the next few months. And but it's clear already now that it's definitely very worthwhile to participate in the sandbox. And hopefully we can immediately after we have concluded discussions here go forward and apply for the necessary licenses to run the exchange. So that's basically what we do.
That's very interesting, as I would say that even within the European Commission, tokenization is really one of the most interesting topics going forward and the focus of the Commission. So it's also interesting that you went through the whole discussions and thinking about how to comply with your business models that you have already worked on. I would say that the question that I have for you is like the fragmentation between member states versus having something that would be a European Union, regulation or framework. Would you comment on that?
Yeah, so I'm not a lawyer. I'm not sure I fully understand the question. Actually, I think that of course it's extremely important for us to have something running that we can passport across the different member states. That's a key requirement for us.
No, that's brilliant, because for so many different use cases, some of the things are regulated on an EU level. I would say they're very similar all over Europe, and some are very specific on a member state level. So there's like a lot of like first patchwork, but then also bringing together everything that is on the EU level. And I'm sure that Marjolaine can add more on this here, and Elisenda, of course, but it's really something that we're all going through, whoever is in a way working and dealing with certain specific business models within the European Union. And it seems that within the blockchain ecosystem and using blockchains, there are a lot of interesting business cases that really need to take all of this into consideration. Great, thank you so much. So I would ask Elisenda next to present her view, how she went through the whole process of being part of a sandbox, and then also, of course, presenting the project. And later we can have a little bit more of a discussion to ask or to give advice to anyone that is interested in basically applying.
Thank you, Marina. Yes. First of all, in order to explain why we applied to the sandbox, I would like to give a brief explanation what our company does, in order everyone can understand. Okay. We are a software provider. Okay, for our company. In order to tokenize, of course, tokenization, very interesting topic nowadays. Their real world assets. Okay, including financial instruments or not financial instruments. Why we apply to the sandbox is because we checked the last guidelines issued by the first cohort, and we saw that not only applicability of regulations was analyzed, but also some feedback regarding what happens about these regulations was analyzed. Okay, for instance, one in order you can understand what I'm saying, in the last guidelines, the standards and how they are applied, okay, were not analyzed. This is like not only a legal application of the regulations, but also a practical one, and we really like that. Why is that? Because as already my colleagues were explaining about the regulations, is not sometimes the real cases in the sector that are appearing. We not only are strictly based on the regulation, but also we have a specific applicability. No, for that reason, we decided to apply to the sandbox with a specific case that was not only about regulations, but also a practical application of such regulations. Okay. For that, it was really helpful that Bird and Bird helped us, because we needed to transmit that to the regulator, okay, showing our platform, how our clients can use it, what tools has. Also, as some of you may know, one of our clients is also part of the sandbox, and they were able also to collaborate with us in order to showcase this situation. Why? To understand how regulations apply, but also how this technical part is also applied in the real world. No, and with that, well, our purpose was to obtain, no, the guidelines, not only the theoretical ones, but also the practical ones. No, and well, of course, it was really useful. And you were asking about some recommendations, no, that I will provide to other potential applicants. And from my side is to collaborate a lot between departments. Okay, I manage the legal one, but it's really important to all talk about technical perspective, legal perspective, because you have to present it in a manner that someone that never saw your platform or never use it, or maybe it's not blockchain their expertise, can understand what is that you are doing. Okay, and for that reason, well, of course, Bird was really useful, because they did the preparatory meetings that I think are essential to understand how to present your ideas, to present what is the purpose that you want to achieve. Okay, because our case, a specific case, we presented several things, but was to analyze the tokenization not of financial instruments, that is something we can see clearly governed by regulations, but that that real world assets that are not financial instruments. That I think was really interesting, no, to understand, for instance, how quotas can be tokenized, how revenue streams can be tokenized. And from the side of Brickken, we presented the platform and how this is done in a practical way, but we were able to receive feedback from the regulation and legal perspective.
This is brilliant. Thank you so much. Stefano, Klaus, do you have any other advice for anyone that is thinking right now if they would apply to the sandbox or not?
Yeah.
I will go, Klaus. Beside the fact that we agree on what Elisenda mentioned, so meaning very practical, and I would say ideally, looking at what are we trying to build in Europe, I would say that the use cases, besides being extremely practical, so as Elisenda mentioned, the regulators can really understand how their action translate into practice. They should also be, in our opinion, driven to the common good, meaning for really the people that has to use it tomorrow, and not just to showcase limited application. That's something that for us is very important. And by the way, everybody mentioned the huge support that we receive from Bird and Bird in crafting the dialogues. That's because we started with certain ideas, but then we had the opportunity to have this support in order to really focus on what was of care of everybody. And in this sense, we ourselves, from let's say the wider level of our solution, at the very end, because of the regulators questioning specifically on one of the use cases application, the European deforestation regulation upcoming, we had to really focus, be very specific, be very practical. So that's what I would say is key, either to apply for the next cohort on the sandbox, but even to try to really communicate at best at any level on what we do, on what company does.
Thank you. Klaus.
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. I'm only aware of our own use case scenario, so of course it's not representative, but I would say anyone considering something like we have done needs sufficient legal experience and knowledge within the company to be able to get the full value out of it. If you don't have a lawyer or someone with a legal background and a lot of legal know-how, then I think it's going to be difficult. But maybe there are projects that are less legally demanding than ours. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, that's very useful. And what you mentioned before, the dialogue between the regulators and the projects and being facilitated by the sandbox, that's very, very useful for sure. I'm actually wanted to say that this is also, as you mentioned, a 3 years project. This is the last cohort. We discussed with Miriam before, and Marjolaine, what's happening next? What's going on next year? I don't know if you wanted to mention anything. We still need to basically know more from the Commission, if this is correct.
Yeah, I don't know if Marilyn has managed to reconnect, but maybe just to touch on that briefly. So yes, this is the project as it stands. The cohort that we're currently in the applications phase for is, as planned, the final cohort. But obviously, unfortunately, we don't have one of the representatives of our EU Commission colleagues here today, but we know that this is a really important initiative for them, and that making sure that there is a good structure for blockchain regulatory frameworks across Europe is really important. So I think discussions are ongoing to see maybe what can be continued from here in terms of building best practices out. I don't know, Marilyn, if there's anything else to add on that point.
We'll wait for Marlene to connect. Whenever she is able to, we'll definitely take her opinion. I think that the last part of this call, I really wanted to ask you all that were also part of this sandbox in the past. So what are you seeing in general as trends going forward within the industry, in the blockchain industry specifically? Let's say, what do you see the trends being in the next few years? But also, if you could speak to the Commission right now, what would you like to tell them in terms of the sandbox and how useful it was for you, or any type of advice also for them going forward? I don't want to pick anyone. If anyone wants to be the first one to start.
No, don't worry, Klaus.
I would like to say to them, I think they're doing a good job compared to what we see in other jurisdictions around the world. I think we have a favorable position in Europe with a blue stamp of approval of anything blockchain infrastructure related. I think a lot of people in the US and Asia are envious of us, and I think they should just continue in that direction. I don't have any particular criticism on MiCA or any regulation like that. I think it's reasonably good and pointing in the right direction.
Thank you.
Yes, I totally agree with Klaus. From my perspective, and maybe because we are in the sector now, but I think the next trend is real world assets. I think has been talked a lot about it, and also tokenization. And from my perspective, also sandbox really useful. I love that in Europe we try to do this step forward and do this sandbox to understand the projects and what they are doing, and talk with the with the ones that we are creating something new in a new sector that is not easy to understand. Also, there are several projects with several capabilities, with several tools, that are not easy to understand, and that is really appreciated from our side, and all my team can say it. We are super happy that the legislator sit with us and listen to us and work with us closely. And I think that if someone is thinking to participate, I really encourage it. And also because if you're a lawyer or you are not a lawyer, okay, you will learn a lot. In fact, some of my team members that are technical ones, they came with us to the discussions, no? And at the beginning, they were a little bit lost with the regulation, with the legislation. And when we finished, we were in a meeting, and my colleague that from the technical department said, he explained all the discussions we had with a legal background. And for that, from a general counsel, that is awesome because they were able to understand everything was happening, to be able to talk with the legislator, and to have this no insight and knowledge about that. Then I encourage a lot to participate.
Thank you, Lucinda. Stefano.
Well, yes, I buy in as well. What mentioned, probably I would add something that to me is key, because indeed, as also Klaus mentioned, we all know there is this so-called race globally between different regions, but the race is not a per se. The race is because anyway, technology moves, and blockchain doesn't make an exception. Hopefully, more and more we see the power and the opportunities related to the blockchain technology. What I would like to see and to share and to invite all of us, starting from the regulators, is try to close the gap that today still remain between the technological part and the governance part, because they must go at the same speed. That doesn't mean to drop the quality of the regulation that we are building, but just make them run at the same speed. Else, we have several risks that we know on the table. So to me, we have example. This happened some other occasion along the history, even with the coming of the internet and the regulation in US. So we really need to be able, regulatory-wise, to run at the same speed. Somebody would say even to be 1 second earlier than the technology, so to enable and to foster. That's something I really would like to see in Europe happening as early as possible, because technology do not wait us for that.
There's a very increased acceleration point of all the technologies, AI, blockchain, of course, everything is happening so quickly. And we do have, as mentioned, this in a way, this privilege to discuss with the regulators, but also we see that they are interested in learning more. And this dialogue is something that is important. We are all agreeing on this. And of course, the European Blockchain Sandbox is a big part of that. I wanted to ask Miriam for the last word, if she wants to share anything. Maybe we can talk again about the dates, the deadline. And what I remembered is you need to write any questions 5 days before the deadline. That's important.
Yes, no, I think that's a really key point to highlight, Marina, is that the deadline is the 31st of January at midnight, but the application form is quite comprehensive. So I think it's better to give yourself as much time as possible if you are interested in submitting an application. And please be sure to read the application form as well as you possibly can. All of the information that you need is in there, but it is quite comprehensive, and we'd hate to see any use cases missing out on the eligibility criteria just because of missing a section. So make sure you read it clearly, but also we are available to answer any questions along the way. You can email us at the email address that is on our social media and on our website as well. And yeah, we'd be happy to answer any questions people have along the way, but just make sure not to miss that Jan 31st deadline.
Thank you so much. I have the last question for the ones that graduated already. how much time do you need to take aside for the application?
Not much. Well, from our perspective, was really easy to apply.
Mm.
Of course, you have to describe all the criteria that Marjolina explained really well in order they can check everything. But I think it's very fast if you have all the information of the company, and they are also really fast in answering. And about the process, all the process, you have to have time to participate, because you will have to prepare the meetings, you will have to prepare the documentation, you will have to prepare after the meeting. Okay, then I also encourage to have the necessary time. But the application per se, from our perspective, was not that difficult. Like, was okay to fill.
I agree also from my side, Marina, exactly as Elisenta mentioned. And so application-wise, I would say is not a showstopper or a case stopper for anybody, but to be ready indeed to focus on the preparation for the dialogues. But here, really, again, let us be honest that the support from the Bird is huge and extremely precious. So even there, no worries, just time to allocate.
Yeah, I didn't write it on our side. I'm actually not sure how much time it took. I don't think it was too bad.
Okay, everyone, we have another 2 weeks for that. If you have questions right before to the European Blockchain Sandbox, we will also have this presentation here, this event online all the time. You can rewatch it. Thank you so much for being a part of this discussion. It was really interesting, and congratulations again for being selected and being a part of this European Blockchain Sandbox. I really do hope we're going to have something similar in the next year as well. And also, if anyone is, has more questions, please write to Miriam, Marjolaine. You can reach out to us as well. We can forward the questions. And good luck for everyone, to everyone that will apply. And I'm really looking forward to hear more about who the selected projects are going to be pretty soon. Maybe you know, Miriam, when the announcement of the selected projects will happen. We'll probably need some time for the selection.
So the selection process takes a little while. So after the applications period is closed, we usually give it a couple of months. So I imagine it will be late spring, but we'll be able to provide some more exact dates on that a little closer to the time.
Very well.
It will be a public announcement once they are selected. So
perfect.
Keep an eye out.
We'll also make sure to reshare and talk about the new cohort for sure. Again, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.